15 of 16 semifinal games went chalk. Yeah, that's right. Only one upset in the state this week. We're going to talk about it. Then we're going to give you projections for each of our 8 state final games. It's state finals week, guys. Stay tuned. We've got a jam-packed show. We're going to get into it. Let's go.
Yeah, guys, we're excited. This one's going to be good. The last week of football action in 2025. But make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our newsletter. It comes every Friday. We'll send it out again this week for the state finals games. And then follow us on socials. We got stuff on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're always posting graphics, cool little data insights. So make sure you do that.
Yep. And we officially owe you guys for hitting 300 subs. So currently at 325, we owe you. You guys don't owe us anything yet because we still got to make good on our promise for 300 subs. So that'll be coming in a later episode. All right, well, let's get into it. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our presenting sponsor, TeamFi. TeamFi is Doak and I's company. We do free digital fundraisers for your school team, your school group, your club team, your nonprofit. Guys, TeamFi has done it all. We've got a solution for everybody. They're all digital, meaning you're not selling anything. And the best part is TeamFi takes 0% of what you raise. We just had another 5-star review drop yesterday, this time from Manton High School Winter Guard, way up north. Jennifer Wamhoff here just left us a very kind review. Easy to use and customer service was amazing. Guys, if you need a fundraiser, check out TeamFi, www.teamfi.works. Sign up for a demo. We can get you started today. All right, guys. Well, we just went through a semifinal round where we have 16 games, right? We've got 8 11-man divisions and only one upset. That's crazy accuracy out of the computer bottle. I don't love it. You don't love to see a chalk. Things go that chalk, right? You want a little variation, but that's just what it was. Computer bottle picks at 94% if you round up. So where was the upset? Schoolcraft defeats Clinton 43-14, and that's quite a large margin. Clinton was a 9-point favorite coming in. That was one of the larger spreads coming into the semifinal round. Clinton, in fact, already has 2 upsets of their own earlier in the bracket. So they beat 2 higher-rated teams than Schoolcraft already, and actually a third with Millington. And so this was their largest point spread of the bracket, and it's just kind of a strange coincidence that Schoolcraft wins. All credit to Schoolcraft, great game, but just kind of weird how the data shakes out that Clinton is able to get to defeat 3 higher-rated computer model opponents and then not defeat this one. So that is going to put Schoolcraft in the state finals. Spoiler alert for another section of the show here. They will be the lowest rated computer model team remaining across all the 8 divisions. So we're going to give you a little sneak peek at that later on. But every other game went chalk. So I don't have too much on this segment. Now, I will say we could look at the spread differentials here to kind of say, okay, where even though the favorite won, maybe where did the favorite win by more than you would expect or less than you would expect? So let's look at that. I think one that jumps out at you right away is DCC against East Kentwood. They win 46-6. The Shamrocks do. The spread on that going in was 5. And so that's just a very impressive result. That's going to shoot their rating up, and you're going to see the spread on their game with Cass Tech be a little bit bigger than maybe you expected.
Yeah, I mean, I'll build on that a little bit, Ken. I mean, Catholic Central's done that. I think, well, at least they did it last week too. I mean, 1-point spread with Clarkson, and they ended up winning by 4 scores. And then in the first 2 rounds, I think they beat the spread against Brighton, and I'm not sure about their first round against Heartland, but I think DCC's just played above their rating at the moment. So it's not a huge surprise, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good point, Doak. Anytime you see a team covering the spread like this in back-to-back weeks, means they're probably still underrated. And so DCC's rating has shot up. Their spread on the game with Cass Tech, I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's widened. but maybe it should widen even more. So that'll be interesting to watch this play out here. Um, Other crazy outperformance is again a Catholic League Central team taking on a different public school from the West Side. This is Orchard Lake St. Mary's and Portage Central. This game, a lot of people had circled all year. I certainly did. Portage Central had some very impressive numbers. They were undefeated. They were having a great year. Orchard Lake St. Mary's, of course, is the defending D2 champ. And so when we saw that they were going to meet in the semifinals, rated number 1 and number 2, we thought that this had potential for a great game. The spread was supposed to be 6. So the Eaglets by 6. Same kind of story. OLSM wins 42-7. I think they were up 28-0 in maybe the very early in the first half, and so just like not a close game, I don't think. The theme here of the two outperformances is the Catholic League Central teams really taking it to public school teams, and really started to hit their stride. So, Doak, I don't know if you have anything on that game.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that game, and Orchard Lake St. Mary's, they made some plays like early, some like long touchdown passes, and they drove down the field and they got stopped early. They were up 28-0, I think, with 10 minutes to go in the second quarter. So it wasn't they had a punt return as well. Like they started hot, and it was just too much for Portage Central to come back because they run a wishbone style offense, and when you're playing teams that can score that fast, and you're forced into a more of a passing situation, I think it was just a nightmare scenario for a Portage Central type offense, and something they definitely didn't experience yet this year. So, I mean, one of those games where it's just you fall too far behind too fast and it's too much.
That's right. If you're sort of see that in high school football a lot, where you have these very kind of ball control offenses, and you get down, it's hard to come back, and things compound quickly, and you're kind of in a tough spot. So, anyways, I wanted to touch on those two. They kind of have the same theme, and you saw some crazy outperformance of the spread. Two other places where people outperformed the spread by 3 scores or more. Notre Dame Prep was favorited over Monroe Jefferson by a touchdown. They win 51-21. NDP's kind of got the same thing as our Catholic League Central teams. They've really been hitting their stride here in the playoffs. They've really been outperforming. They've seen their rating shoot up accordingly. And it's going to be a very similar theme in their game with West Catholic here, what the projection is going to be. Again, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it's going to be a very similar theme. So, congrats to them. Another one here, which is not a private school, Dexter beating Groves 41-6. That's your your fourth biggest outperformance, fifth biggest outperformance of the entire slate. The Dreadnoughts, beating Groves like that, they're only supposed to win by 13. Again, that's going to bump up their rating going into their final game here with Orchard Lake. So in D2 there, you got two teams coming off huge wins in impressive fashion, and now they're going to play each other. So that's sort of something to keep tabs on for that D2 game. The average spread differential was 13 points. And we don't report on that stat a lot, but that's smack dab where it is every week, I would say, right around 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so, pretty normal week in terms of spread. We just had, only one upset. And so a chalk semifinal round, that is going to bring us to my next segment. We're going to do a quick Survivor Island, but then I want to touch on something I'm going to call bracket structure. So, Doak, give me a Survivor Island update, and then let's get to our bracket.
Yeah, Survivor Island, we're down to 7 teams. We had one matchup last week between Pewamo and Menominee. It actually was probably one of our more chalk games. It didn't play out that way in real life. Like, Pewamo was up by 2 scores, and Menominee kind of stormed back late, scored on a long pass with seconds to go in the game, but I think we projected that score 31-26. It was 32-28. So that was our one battle of unbeatens, and it didn't fail to live up to the hype. But outside of that, we have 7 teams left now, and it's Cass Tech and DCC in Division 1, DeWitt and Mount Pleasant in D3, and then you have Menominee, obviously, and then our D8 finals is also a battle of unbeatens between Hudson and Harbor Beach. So the way it kind of shook out is interesting. We could finish with 4 unbeatens. We'll at least finish with 3 though, because 3 divisions have unbeaten state title games. So pretty interesting. Makes for a cool finals to see 3 matchups between unbeaten teams, and especially uh, especially that D8 matchup. I think we've said that might happen for 10 straight weeks now, and it's going to happen. So those 2 teams have been playing on another level in that division, and I'm really excited. This is the most excited I've been for a D8 matchup since we started Goosepoop, just because we haven't seen 2 teams at that level. So kind of a tangent there on Survivor Island, but yeah, that's our update. 7 teams left, and we got 3 unbeaten matchups this week. So
that's great. Well, so let's see. Let's see how it shakes out. We'll either have 3 or 4 survivors. So it shows you again. There's 511 man teams. To have only 3 go 14-0 or 4 go 14-0, it just shows you how impressive that is. 3 on 500 is half of 1% of teams. So just phenomenal. Anybody who goes 14-0, congrats. So. All right, well, let's jump into next week. We've got state finals. We've got only 8 games left. We've only got 16 teams left playing. Before I give you the predictions for each, I want to touch on something. I'm going to call it kind of our bracket structure, and we'll also include our favorite tracker in here, our favorites tracker. So bracket structure, what do I mean by that? Well, how good are our finals games actually? Because remember, we don't see these things according to Goosepoop. We see these things in a much more complicated structure. I'm not going to recap that now. But what happens is sometimes you will get weird matchups in the finals where it's not necessarily the 2 best teams. And again, I'm not trying to knock anybody here. A lot of times you end up with a lower seeded team because they fairly upset somebody in front of them, right? And so this is just kind of for the nerds of like, hey, did we get the 2 best teams in the finals, or do we have sort of a mini Cinderella story going on? So that's what we're going to look at here. Let's check it out. In D1, and I'm trying to think how I want to do this. Let's do it like this. So I don't have my website updated, so we're going to look at this. In D1, we have our 2 best teams. DCC and Cass Tech, they've been 1 and 2 for most of the season since we adjusted Cass Tech's rating. Go back a few episodes if you're curious about that. We have our 2 best teams. DCC and Cass Tech are number 1 and number 2. Things went exactly according to plan there, and we've got our best possible state final game. In D2, a little bit of a different story. We technically played our state final last round. Orchard Lake St. Mary's and Portage Central are your 2 highest rated teams. We touched on that game a little bit. We lost Muskegon via upset fashion. That was team number 3 in the regional finals round. No, the district finals round. Muskegon lost to Traverse City Central. And then our other state finalist is Dexter. They're your 4th seeded team. Now they can't really, or they're your 4th highest rated team. Now they can't really control anything because they were put on the side of the bracket they were put on, and all they did was beat the opponents in front of them. So they don't really get to say whether they're higher rated than Portage Central or Muskegon. And so no fault to them. But D2 is your first one of these things where it's like, okay, you don't have your 2 highest rated teams in the finals. You've got 1 and 4. That's still pretty close. Let's jump to 3. What do we got going out at 3? 3, bit of the same thing as 2. You got DeWitt. They're your highest rated team. They're still alive. Your second best team got upset in round 3. Is that right, Doe? King, we lost round 3.
Yep.
Pilot, Warren De La Salle. Yep. So King's not in it. They lost in the regional finals to Warren De La Salle. Your team coming from the other side of the bracket, Mount Pleasant, is just slightly lower rated than King. They are your other state finalists. So you've got a 1 and 3 matchup, and really 3, you can't do anything about it. Mount Pleasant just beat the teams in front of them. They did play king. And so, again, pretty good job there. 1 and 3 matchup. Let's do 4. 4 is where it gets a little interesting. So we lost. Oh, what do I got? In 4, we've got a 2 and 5 matchup. 2 and 5. We lost Harper Woods when they lost to Divine Child. Divine Child is in there. We still, if they played again, we would have Harper Woods over Divine Child. And so Divine Child has been the first one to kind of buck the trend here of all the teams to say, hey, no, we're taking that spot and we're going to be in there. So congrats, congrats, and then kind of an interesting dynamic there. So Divine Child as a 5 is your lowest team across the 4 divisions that we've discussed, the lowest seeded team, and they rightfully are owed that spot because they beat the first team head to head. On the other side, Unity Christian is the 2 spot. They did not have to play Harper Woods. Teams in between them and Divine Child, Ludington and Williamston, they did not have to play Williamston, and they did not have to play Ludington. So sort of interesting. The left side of the west side of the D4 bracket really had some craziness to it. If you remember, Ludington and Big Rapids played the first round. Big Rapids upset Ludington. If you remember, one of the state's larger upsets, Vicksburg over Portland, happened. There were some other bigger upsets earlier on in that same quadrant of the bracket with, I think, Grand Rapids Christian. And so you had sort of all these things play out where D4, I think I called it the shot to hell division, because it just had some wildness. D4 is the first time where you see, okay, there's a little bit sort of some interesting seeding dynamics going on here. Again, rightfully deserved by both teams, right? Divine Child beat every team in front of them. Unity Christian beat every team in front of them. So, Unity Christian did not have to play Harper Woods. So, 2 and a 5 in D4. Let's keep going. What do we got going out at 5? In 5, we're back to the same thing we saw in D1. We've got the 2 best teams, according to the computer model. Team 1 and Team 2 squaring off. Notre Dame Prep, Westcat. In 6, what do we got going on? Same thing. Lumen Christie and Kingsley. They've been 1 and 2 basically since the start of the playoffs. They're staring each other down. It's going to be a great game, and we got the 2 best teams. What do we got going in 7? 7 is your only remaining funky one. Menominee is your number 1 team. They've been the number 1 team for a good portion of this year, I think all of the playoffs. They just had a crazy game with what we would say is the actual state final. The computer model would say it's the actual state final because it was number 1 and number 2. And Doak touched on that game just now, Menominee and Pewamo, Westphalia. How crazy it was. It was back and forth to the end. That was your 1 and 2 spot there. Now here's where it gets interesting. The other side of the bracket, we had SMCC, Clinton, Whiteford, and Millington. Bang, bang, bang. That was all one side of the bracket. Clinton went through all of those teams I just mentioned. But the team that remains is Schoolcraft. Schoolcraft just upset Clinton. And so, again, you play the teams you can. Schoolcraft didn't have the opportunity to go through that kind of murderer's row like Clinton did. But that's how you end up with Schoolcraft being the lowest seeded team of any team, or lowest rated team of any team remaining in the finals. Schoolcraft is number 7. And so just sort of an interesting thing. Another way to put this is, guys, as we think about next year and we start off in the playoffs, and is like, is it possible for a team rated lower than number 7 to even make the state finals, right? Does that statistically happen? I don't know. I haven't been looking at the data like this across the last few years that we've been doing this, but there's something to keep tabs on. This year, the lowest rated team is Schoolcraft, number 7, to make the finals. We've got a lot of number 1 and number 2 matchups. And we see that in 8, our final division. Again, Harbor Beach and Hudson. We've been talking about this matchup. It's finally here. It's going to be a great game. Another 1 and 2 matchup. So another way to put this is, all right, so we see some craziness in D4 and D7. Again, it's not really that crazy. You got a 1 versus a 7, and you've got a 2 versus a 5. You don't see any craziness at all in D1. That's a 1-2 matchup. In D5, that's a 1-2 matchup. In D6, that's a 1-2 matchup. In D8, that's a 1-2 matchup. So we've got 4 divisions where the computer is saying, nice job, MHSAA. We got the 2 best teams. Handshake. Right? And so that's my quick segment there on bracket structure. Doke, did that just make any sense, or did I just ramble on for 15 minutes?
No, it made sense. But the one thing I would say on this is, although there are brackets where there's not the 2 best teams, numbers wise, I mean, the one thing the model doesn't really account for is when teams get hot at the right time, when teams hit their stride at the right time, right? And we were covering that a little bit in the first section when we were talking about how DCC has just absolutely ripped up the spread the last couple of weeks, right? They're playing their best football at the right time, and there's similar things. Schoolcraft is playing their best football at the right time. Divine Child is playing their best football at the right time, and so when they're kind of ahead of the model hasn't really caught up to them yet in that sense of like how good could this team really be? And that's why you see things like this when teams go through all the teams better than them in the playoffs. The one anomaly here would probably be Clinton. I mean, they went through Ottawa Lake Whiteford, they went through SMCC, went through Millington, and then the team lower rated than all of them beat them, which is interesting. But I think Schoolcraft is, they've been playing well all playoffs. They played, teams that were lower rated than them and beat them up pretty good. So, I mean, it was hard to know. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good finals. I think, everybody gives their best swing, obviously. So I don't think ratings matter too much once you get to Ford Field. But it is interesting in the fact that we have some really highly rated finals. I feel like the most competitive finals we've had in a couple of years. So,
yeah, again, I haven't done a great job at tracking the seeding history and how this analysis that we just did over time. So I'll make sure to kind of file that away in my head. And so hopefully we can talk about it more next year comparatively. And another thing that you bring up there, Doke, is it's a great point. We don't weight these games. And so, and possibly to our detriment, your week 13 result is weighted just as heavily as your week 1 result in the current version of the computer model. Now, that's just saying that, sounds like something stupid to do, but that's how we do it here. It's still pretty accurate. Obviously, we just picked 15 of 16 games, but we're definitely leaving something on the table, right? And so you would look at that and you'd say, okay, DCC is underrated. You would look at some other teams, okay, they're underrated, right? You would probably look at some other teams and you'd be like, they're overrated. They haven't covered their spread in this many games. So good point there, Doke. All right, well, so before we jump into the predictions, I just want to take a quick look at our favorite tracker. We started this playoffs. This is a segment we've been doing for every week for those who are new to the show. We started this playoffs with a favorite in each division, so 8 favorites. And we said, look, one of the fun things will be here is does our favorite, how many of our favorites finish the season as the actual champ? And so we gave you 8 favorites, and we said, guys, if we sum up the probabilities, we expect 2.9 of these guys to win. So around 3. And that's similar to what it was the previous year. So 3 of our 8 favorites to win. Well, how many favorites do we even have left with 1 game? We've actually got 7 left. 7 of 8 remain. We've only lost D4's favorite, which is Harper Woods. So the other 7 favorites still remain. Detroit Catholic Central is not Detroit. Detroit Cass Tech. They're one of your favorites. Orchard Lake St. Mary's, that's your D2 favorite. Your D3 favorite's DeWitt. D4 favorite, we lost. That's Harper Woods. D5 favorite, Notre Dame Prep, still alive. D6 favorite, Lumen Christi, still alive. D7 favorite, Menominee, still alive. And D8 favorite, Hudson, still alive. Not all of those teams are going to be favored this week. Okay? A lot of those teams have their toughest matchups all year. Spoiler alert, that's the segment we're about to get into. But I will say the expected value of favorites to win has shot up with such a good semifinal round. I did the math. I think it's about 4.5 of our original 8 favorites we expect to be champs. And so for people who like parity, this is not shaping up to be a very fun playoffs. We basically call what I'm saying is, hey, look, you could have started the 5 weeks ago at the beginning of the playoffs and said, I I feel pretty strongly we could pick four of the champs, maybe even 5 of the champs from just round 1, just with the computer model data. So dwell on that. I'm a fan of parity. I don't love it with the computer model picks everything, but the computer model's having a great playoffs. It doesn't always shake out like that. I just wanted to touch on that. Just kind of an interesting and somewhat depressing segment. So, Doak, anything on that before I jump into the predictions here?
No, let's jump into it.
All right, so we've got 8 games, and we're going to start in D8 and work our way down to D1. So, in D8, we've got a very special game. We've got 2 undefeated squads, Hudson and Harbor Beach. They both start with H. They're both orange and black. They're both undefeated. They've been 1-2 all year long. We had Hudson, the lower rated team, and I say lower rated, they're only slightly lower rated, as the favorite coming into the playoffs because Harbor Beach had to go through the only D8 team we thought could run with these 2 teams, which is Beale City, the defending champ. Hudson did not. Well, Harbor Beach beat Beale City a couple rounds ago. And so Harbor Beach is now technically your favorite, even though Hudson was our favorite to start the playoffs. Now, that favorite is not by much. Hudson and Harbor Beach, we expect Harbor Beach to win 31-30. So in odds terms, they have a 51% chance to win. Hudson has a 49% chance to win. Should be a great game. Just a really fun one. These guys we've been talking about this game for 10 weeks. I think it'll be fantastic. It's gonna be one of your marquee championship games of the weekend. Doak, anything to add on 8?
No, I think I spoke enough on D8 a little bit ago. So
Okay. Well, let's go down to 7. So 7, like I said, the bracket structure here, we end up with a 1 and a 7 facing off. So it actually ends up being, in computer model terms, your largest spread of the weekend. We've got Menominee 33, Schoolcraft 14. So that's your largest spread of the weekend. That's a 19-point spread. It gives Menominee roughly an 84% chance of winning. Schoolcraft a 16% chance of winning. 2 things I want to say on this. 1, I can't remember what happened last year with the largest underdog, but before last year, there had been 3 straight years where the largest underdog on state championship weekend won. And so that happened 3 straight years. Will that happen again? Right. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm making a quick apology to Schoolcraft if they end up winning. Right. That has happened before. I've kind of covered my butt. So think about that. It is a 1 in 6 shot. That's like playing Russian roulette, right? You wouldn't play it. So
yeah,
all the chance of the world.
I think you're hitting it right on the nose there. Like that game, I'm not surprised. And I would take Schoolcraft to cover, for sure. The way they performed last week and they've been performing in the playoffs, like, this is the last game. This is both teams are like, it's nobody's nobody's gonna be able to do anything easily, and that is, Schoolcraft's. I would take them to compete more than 33-14.
The other thing I want to touch on here is it has been since I believe 2016, and somebody can comment this in the comments if I'm off, since the UP has won an 11-man championship. I believe it was Ishpeming, one of those Ishpeming teams. Menominee got very close last year, or no, 2 years ago against Lumen, I believe. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Kind of the final moments of the game, I believe. Is this the year that the UP reclaims an 11-man championship? The computer would say yes. I kind of am hoping for that, just so the UP gets that back under their belt. So that's another storyline in this game. All right, let's move on to 6. 6, we've got a 1 and 2 matchup, another 1 and 2 matchup. Kingsley and Lumen Christi. I don't think people are going to like this spread just because Kingsley comes in with 2 losses and Lumen Christi is a juggernaut. I think they've won 2-3 straight titles, something like that. So going maybe for their 4th straight title, Doak. Is that right?
I believe so,
yep. But the spread here is very narrow. We've only got Lumen Christi by 1, 23-22. Not a ton of points. It is your lowest over-under of the weekend. An over-under of 45. So I don't think people are going to like that. I think they're going to like Lumen Christie to kind of put up, kind of widen the margin on Kingsley. We'll see. If you remember, Kingsley's had some impressive results. Remember what they did to Traverse City St. Francis back at week 2 of the playoffs. So, but that's a 1-2 matchup. We got the two best teams, the computer's saying. Can Kingsley end this streak that Lumen Christie's on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say further on that. I mean, I might push back on you a little bit. I mean, Lumen Christie, a lot of people might say should have lost last week. A lot of controversy on their triple overtime game with Elmont, whether or Elmont actually scored a touchdown in over the first overtime, and then Elmont had an extra point to win and missed it. So I'm sure um, they're not happy at home this week. But that game was pretty crazy, and Lumen Christie got tested, about as far as you can get tested without losing. So I don't know. And like we said last week as well, like those two games, Lumen Christie and Elmont, Kingsley, Kent City, were probably not gonna be what the model said, just because they were all, Kent City had 3 straight upsets. Lumen Christie's tough to rate. So we knew those were going to be interesting games, and they lived up to the hype. Kingsley didn't take a lead until mid fourth quarter. It was a 0-0 football game, and then triple overtime in the other one. So I think this game is going to be close. I think Kingsley will compete, but who knows? Maybe you're more right.
Well, and that's certainly not my prediction. I think it's just the way the everybody who watches the show and interacts with our content will probably see it. Notre Dame Prep and West Catholic. That's our D5 game. This is your best game of the weekend, according to the model. So we have a nice over-under, 61 points, 60 points. And we've got a predicted score of 30-30. It is a pick 'em. West Catholic would have been favorited over Notre Dame Prep all year until today. Notre Dame Prep is one of those teams that has surged. We talked about their outperformance, what they did to Monroe Jefferson last round, how they're kind of covering the spread all playoffs. So they've been a little underrated. They are now slightly favorited over West Catholic. So we're gonna say that we're picking them, even though the rating differential here is 0.04 points. So you can't score a 0.04 of a point in a game, but that's how close it is. It's a pick 'em. West Catholic, man, what a slugfest of games they've had to go through. If you'll remember, this is not the only one where they've been in a pick 'em game. They played their arch rival in round 2 of the playoffs, Catholic Central, and it was a pick 'em then, and they were slightly favored then. But it was, and then this Ogama Heights game that they just played in was very close. I think it was a single-digit point spread, and I think it played out that way as well. And so, if the Falcons win it all here, they almost, they will have earned it, right? Not to say that people don't earn their championships, but you win a pick'em game, you win a single-digit point spread game, and then you win another pick'em game. That's crazy. And you kind of, you've got to really be, you can't underperform to win a pick'em game. So this will be fun. There's going to be a lot of points. It's going to be very close. I expect theatrics. Notre Dame Prep, of course, has been our favorite since the start of the playoffs. West Catholic has been our number 1 rated team since defeating Catholic Central in round 2. What's going to happen? Doak?
Yeah, I mean, this is the game I'm personally most excited for. This or the D8 game, just because they're two teams that have been, they're just, you don't see teams this good in the lower divisions all the time, and I think a pick'em spread is accurate for a football game like this. They've both been hot all postseason, and like you said, West Catholic's just gone through the gauntlet. I think the worst team they've played in the last 3 rounds is the 10th ranked team overall in that division, and that's just a tough route to the finals when you're playing 3 straight top 10 teams to get there. But that being said, Notre Dame Prep's played tough teams as well. You got Frankenmuth and Monroe Jefferson back-to-back weeks. Those are no slouches. I think they played Frankenmuth in the finals last year. So and then they got them in the regionals, and then Jefferson's been putting up 100,000 points a week. So I mean, both teams earn their way here, and it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, D5 has been a very fun division. We entered the playoffs with like 6 or 7 people who are all rated very close to each other, 6 or 7 teams. And we were telling you guys it could be any of these teams. And so we've had some very close semifinal games, some very close earlier round games. The 2 teams that we ended up with are number 1 and 2, and it's going to be a very close game. And so, what a great and fun division. All right, we've got our 4 lower divisions here. D4, we told you it's the only division without a 1 seed left. And that's Unity Christian and Divine Child. So we've got a 2 and 5 matchup. That's because Divine Child defeated the 1 seed Harper Woods earlier in the playoffs. We've got a close game. Unity Christian 28, Divine Child 23. Someone on Twitter pointed out that this is a kind of a fun Lions matchup. We've got Isaac Tesla, 3rd round draft pick, representing Unity Christian, and Hutchinson. Everybody knows him, representing Divine Child, so it's kind of a Lions game as well. Divine Child, they upset Harper Woods with a much larger point spread. Can they pull the upset here? Right, it's a 5-point dog to Unity Christian. Divine Child's kind of been what I would say suffocating teams. They have a suffocating defense. I think they won 10-6 against Harper Woods and just knocked out Goodrich, defending champion, state's longest win streak, with a 10-7 win. Can they do that again here to Unity? Doak, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I watched him play Goodrich last week, and Goodrich runs a similar offense. Maybe a version of the wing T, you could say, just a power run team, and just suffocated him. Couldn't move the ball much. So I think this might have less points than the prediction it has. I'm not sure. Unity is a powerhouse on offense, and Divine Child has a heck of a defense. So I'm actually intrigued to see how this one plays out. It might be a quick game based on how much they both like to run the football.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
That's I would probably take the under on the point total there of 51. Surprisingly, not our lowest point total of any of these games, and not even our second lowest point total. So I'm kind of with Doak. I don't buy that there will be that many scores, especially after watching Divine Child play defense in the last couple rounds. So, all right, well, let's move on to D3. D3 is one of our larger point spreads. We've been talking about DeWitt and just how heavy of a favorite they've been for most of the year. They are favored to score. They're expected to score 38 points and win by 14. So 38-24. Quite a few points. Over under of 62. It's your second highest point total of championship weekend. Now they're playing a Mount Pleasant team who's undefeated, and I just watched in person last week. And guys, they were really impressive. They executed across all functions. They beat a good little team, and they're kind of up even bigger than that final result shows. They won 41-21, but I think I want to say it was 28-0 going into the fourth quarter or something like that. So they certainly outperformed their performance last week, or their spread projection last week. Doak, what do you think? Would you take the Oilers to cover here? Do you like the Oilers with the upset?
Yeah, I'm going Oilers to cover, and yeah, I'd put DeWitt on upset alert for sure, because just watching that team play last week, I mean, they got a heck of a defense. And I know DeWitt scores a lot of points, and they really haven't had a competitive game all year. They were sort of in a competitive game the first 2-3 quarters last week. But Mount Pleasant, man, I mean, they've been playing good football. Like they've kind of dominated everybody that's been put in front of them. From the SVL North to East Grand Rapids, they scored points on, and they have a really good defense. And nobody's been able to put up a lot of points on them all year. So I mean, there's that one outlier of the Midland Dow game they had, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to take Mount Pleasant to cover for sure, and I think it's going to be a 1-score game if I had to guess.
Okay. Well, keep tabs on that. DeWitt expected to score the most points of. No, I'm going to take that back. That's our next game. DeWitt expected to score the second most points of any team on championship weekend with 38. Our most points are in our next game. I don't think anybody was surprised by that. I watched Dexter this year in person. They score a lot of points. I've not had the good fortune of watching OLSM, but seeing how many points they just scored against Portage Central, who's playing great defense, they just scored 42, right? I am not surprised that they're expected to score a lot of points as well. We've got a point total here in D2 of 69. That is your highest point total of state championship weekend. We've got a final score of OLSM 42, Dexter 27. Now, after last round, where OLSM technically played a harder opponent, right? This is, again, according to the computer model, we had Portage Central as number 2 and still do all year. After seeing the Eaglets kind of just run through the Mustangs, do you buy that it's only a 16-point spread here, Dope? Should it be a bigger spread? Should the Dreads, are the Dreads actually going to lose by 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns? What do you think, Dope?
I really don't know what to think about this game because I think on one hand you have Dexter's offense, which is just electric. I mean, they've been putting up. I don't think they've scored less than 40 points this year, 45 maybe even. Or I guess they scored 41 this past week. So, but they've just been scoring points and scoring points and scoring points. And I don't know if Orchard Lake can stop them. If anybody can, it's Orchard Lake. But I'm not surprised that they're projected to score 42 because if Dexter's got one weakness, it's they give up a lot of points, especially when they're scoring a lot of points. So I think the spread's, probably right on the nose. I would say I would put this game on shootout alert. It could be like 56 to 49 if it gets if it starts competitive, especially if Dexter's up early and it becomes a shootout. I mean, this could be the game to watch if it starts right, because these two teams, they might have the most potent offenses in the state when they really need to.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Dexter has a potential. I haven't watched the Eaglets, so I can't comment. But Dexter throws the ball around a lot and is very accurate, very very efficient in their passing game, and that'll just make for the potential to score a lot of points. And even if you get down, to come back. So I agree. Anytime you see an over under that high, I mean that makes for an entertaining game. So that is your D2 projection. Orchard Lake St. Mary's 42, Dexter 27. All right, our final game is probably the one that'll be the most talked about. It's D1. It's the largest schools, right? You've got a lot of talent on both sides, a lot of highly rated recruits, and a lot of history. DCC, Cass Tech have both won their fair share of titles, both made their fair share of state finals appearances. Both teams undefeated. Both teams rated in the top 2 of D1. It's your 2 best teams in the state across all divisions as well. If that wasn't enough for you, we've got a point spread that's pretty close. We've got Cass Tech losing by 5 to the Shamrocks. We've got a final score of DCC 31, Cass Tech 26. A lot of people would have flipped this result going into the season. A lot of people had Cass Tech as your number 1 team. Rightfully so. They had a lot of people back. They won the state final last year in pretty dramatic fashion, by not dramatic fashion, but pretty wide point differential over their opponent, Hudsonville. I don't know if sentiment's flipped, if people are agreeing with the computer now. I would like to think that more people are betting on the Shamrocks to win after seeing what they did to East Kentwood last weekend. Cass Tech's game against Adams was a little closer than certainly that game. I think they still covered. So, Doak, what's your feeling here on this game? Do you like the way the computers projected it? Do you think Catholic Central just continues their trend and covers the 5-point differential here? What do you think?
I think it's kind of right on the nose. If I had to guess, I just think Catholic Central's been playing really good football. And Cass Tech has kind of had some closer games than you might expect the last couple weeks. That being said, people have kind of had this game pinned all year, and I just think that there's both teams are going to rise to this occasion. That feeling of they both have some really talented teams, and I just don't see either team laying down. Like, I don't think either team's going to start slow. It's going to be one of those games. It's just a slugfest, like physical, um, and just the two best teams in the state of Michigan, really. I mean, on paper, and I don't see it. I just don't see any sort of game where it doesn't become one score late, and that's just my take. But who knows? If Catholic Central does continue the trend, they might be one of the better teams that's come through Michigan in quite some time.
Well, there you have it, folks. So just to kind of put a bow on it, those are your predictions across all 8 games. Goosepoop game score says if you're going to watch one, watch the D1 final. And if you're going to watch 2, watch the D5 final. So remember, D5 is a pick'em game with a nice little point total there. We expect Notre Dame Prep to edge out West Catholic in a 30-30 game. So those are your 2 best finals. Sort of interesting. I mean, obviously, your worst final is going to be your one with your biggest point differential. We expect Menominee to beat Schoolcraft by 19, I think is the point spread we've got on that. And so that's why the computer is saying, hey, if you're going to skip one, skip that one. So now, should you? No. Watch them all. Watch them all. Everybody deserves to be there, but I just like giving you these kind of metrics. So that's that. Closest point spreads that pick'em game we are telling you. Biggest point spreads that Menominee, Schoolcraft down at D7. Point totals, Lumen Christie and Kingsley, not expected to score a lot of points. We've only got 45 on that. That's your lowest point total. Biggest point totals at Dexter, Orchard Lake St. Mary's game at 69. Your average score for your winners. No, that's not your winners. Man, I don't know. Disregard what I just said. So I was going to give you your average points. So that is all I got for our projections. We don't have anything for mailbag today, guys. So that's that one last thing that I want to touch on for Goosepoop, and we'll be talking about this more as we go. Later, postseason. But the Goosepoop 7-on-7. This is a tournament. This will be the 3rd annual Goosepoop 7-on-7 tournament. It's a very fun day. We'll have more details forthcoming, but this year's edition of the Goosepoop 7-on-7, save the date, July 23rd. July 23rd. I believe that's a Thursday. I'll check right now on my calendar. We have nailed down that day. It'll be at Chelsea High School. We're going to run it back. Yeah, July 23rd. It's a Thursday. Chelsea High School. We'll be doing the smaller age groups the day before, just like last time. So 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. And then varsity on the 23rd. Should be a very fun day. We had 43 teams last year. The year before that, we had about 24. We're hoping to get closer to 60 this year and kind of round out our field. We would ideally love to do a 64 team challenge. So maybe that's ambitious, but that's kind of what we're shooting for this year. More details forthcoming. I'll have a sign-up link here in later weeks. So save that date, July 23rd for the Goosepoop 7-on-7. Doak, anything final before we part?
Just if you enjoy, subscribe. We got more stuff coming to you guys. We'll do a couple more podcasts, and obviously we got to fulfill our promise on 300 subs. So that'll be a video coming after the season, and we got more stuff coming. Not exactly sure what it looks like and what it might be. Maybe it's some different type of YouTube videos or whatever it is. But we're excited to keep it rolling. We're having a lot of fun doing this. So make sure you subscribe and then sub to our newsletter. Follow our socials on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and that's pretty much all I got. It's going to be a fun weekend. I mean, this is why you play the first 13 games is to watch these ones at Ford Field. So I'm excited.